with how stacked the upcoming UFC events are and the absolute superstars that are headlining and even on the prelims, it kind of takes the light away somewhat from other fighters, whether they're just on fight night cards or whether they're working their way up again on the prelims or maybe just, on the bit of an undercard. But in this video, I was just going to ask Dwain, is there any underrated fighters who you think do not get the recognition that they deserve? They've done some hard work in the past, or that just doesn't, they don't get the nod from fans?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of underrated fighters in the UFC. And maybe this is not the most underrated fighter, if that makes sense. But I'd say Michael Chandler right now seems to be getting a lot of disrespect sort of in the MMA community, with this fight against Poirier. It's like, oh, well, Poirier's just going to tear through him. If Charles Oliveira knocked him out, Dustin's, going to batter him. And I think, well, Charles Oliveira, he's a world champion from Bellator. He's had a hell of a run. He really, really put Charles Oliveira in deep waters in that first round of that championship fight. He out-wrestled him, out-grappled him, out-struck him in that first round. But mistakes happen. Sometimes you get caught. It happens. Doesn't mean you have to start disrespecting a fighter and just saying how terrible he is. But what do you sort of think about Chandler, Mark?
I 100% agree with you. I think people are very quick to dismiss him and they talk about his losses more than his wins. And regardless of, if he was propelled to the top, but I mean, it was the champion in a different organization, so it's not as if he was just a rookie starting out. You got to remember, he's not a spring chicken either. He's about 36. So he hasn't got too long left. And he's proved that he can hang with these sort of people. And they make out as if, exactly like you were saying then, they make out like the Oliveira fight was just one-sided and the Gaethje fight was absolutely one-sided. Like, no, not a chance. You got arguably one of the best fights of 2021 with him and Justin Gaethje. And people, it's not good enough for some people. They just don't like, sort of change. What reminds me of is when Brock Lesnar came over, and because he's, he used to F5 people in German suplex them instead of punching them in the face, they just don't like it. I think people just really do not like change. And in Michael Chandler, I think he's great to have in the division. Whether you love him or hate him, it's exciting to watch. People will tune in for him. But I think that's a relevant point to bring up with Michael Chandler himself. There's another fighter as well that I think, is in the limelight a hell of a lot, but Kevin Holland. And not maybe so much like, his actual fighting style, because he is really good. And that he does have losses and everything like that. But it's just been the sense of appreciating while he's here, because he's not going to be here forever. You'll miss him when he's gone. And I know he's young still. He's got quite a long career left, should he choose to, unless this retirement happens, this temporary retirement. But, just make the most of him while he's here, because of how often he fights as well. It really is like, a blessing to be able to watch him. He fights like 5 or 6 times a year, doesn't he? What do you think about Kevin Holland?
Yeah, exactly. I think he's a wonderful fighter. I think he's really exciting. I think perhaps he puts himself at risk a little bit too much. Maybe he should fight slightly less. I know we love him for that. Like, right, he'll jump on any card, he'll take anything last minute. And it has, give him a lot of favors in that sense. I feel like he's gained a lot of favor with the UFC and he's getting rewarded with this Wonder Boy fight. But, I do feel like a lot of people sort of, I don't know, they really sort of talk about Holland as though he's some kind of pushover. You think he's got great knockout power. He's fast. He's young. He's a high-level striker. And he's really, really been training his wrestling. And he's really jumped up. Like his fight with Cowboy. Not Cowboy Cerrone. Who's the other Cowboy? I don't remember his name. But when he's...
Oliveira, yeah.
That's it. When he's there getting in the choke, he just gives the thumbs up. I would have loved if he'd have done something like that against Hamzat, just for the laugh that, oh, I'm caught, screw it, I'll do something. But, unfortunately he didn't. But yeah, I really do. I feel like Kevin Holland is underrated, and I feel like he deserves a lot more respect from the UFC fans.
Yeah, 100%, because he definitely deserves it. He puts the work in, and it just makes sense. But someone else I wanted to bring up to you, I know I'm sort of jumping up and down in weight divisions and everything like that, but someone else I wanted to bring up for you, Dwain, is Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal, I think, is severely underrated, and is very easy just to, look over him, look through him, sort of thing on a card, because the clue's in the name, Hands of Steel. Did you see his last fight? What he did to Vicente Luque? Not many people do that, and usually when it's grappler or jiu-jitsu, whichever, against a striker, which way it goes usually. But to do that was in brutal fashion as well. You know, and
Yeah.
even his fight before that against Santiago Ponzinibbio, I hope I butchered that, but that was at 269. You know, that was a decision, but you know, he can still go. He's only 30, 32, something like that. You know,
Something
so he's
like
still
that,
got
yeah.
a long while left. So I look forward to seeing him in the future.
Yeah, definitely. He's still quite young. And like you said, you know, he absolutely battered Vincent Luque. And like, not a lot of people can have such a dominant win over Luque, apart from, of course, you know, remember the name Bilal Muhammad, you know, the dominant fighter that he is. But, you know, he really has had some really good fights. You know, he beat Nico Perry. He beat Mike Perry. But, and I mean, he lost to Wonder Boy and stuff. But like we said before, just because you've had a loss doesn't mean that you're now crap and nobody's going to like you. You don't deserve that respect. But I do worry about Jeff Neal right now because he is going up against another very underrated fighter, and that's Shavkat, who is a monster. Like, he is literally a monster. He's storming through the UFC, and I am worried for Jeff Neal taking this fight because they called each other out on Twitter, and then the UFC went, all right, let's do it. I just found that weird, though, that now Twitter seems to, if you get beef with someone on Twitter, they just go, all right, let's book it. You think, why? Why are they doing that?
It's just the day and age, though, isn't it? And it gives just more material for, you know, for people to bite into, as in, oh, they've started this Twitter war, whatever, you know, because it's been going on for a good while. But you're right in that sense of Rachmanov is a monster in his previous fights, undefeated. I watched his last one against Neil Magny as well. To be able to do that to him, it was just crazy. But one thing I did like, though, at the end, I said, all right, Mike Bisping, you know, let me do a bit of trash talk. I've been practicing English. And he's like, okay, here you go. Here's your moment. After a dominant victory, he gives him the microphone. He's like, Stephen Thompson, good fight. That's all we've got time for. Rachmanov, ladies and gentlemen. You're like, all right, score. Perfect stuff. But in fighting terms, I think that's going to be a great fight. I'd probably give the edge to Rachmanov, like, actually quite heavily. But they're both like underrated fighters, and it's one of them situations where counterproductive of what we're just doing now, talking about underrated fighters. You don't want one of them to lose. You want them both to win.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, with Shavkat going up against Jeff Neal, you know, like we've just, like, I know we kind of, you know, I've just said, oh, poor Jeff Neal, you know, we shouldn't say he's underrated and all this kind of stuff. But I think he's going to just get cream crackered in that fight, isn't he? And what I'd really like to see is Shavkat go up against someone huge like Hamzat Chimaev or something like that, because that would be an amazing fight. Two very strong, powerful wrestlers going at each other. Yeah, I think I'd love to see that fight.
Isn't it strange in the sense of, you know, in every weight division, there's always like the champion, and then there's a few names after that. But you know, these names are exactly like Shavkat and everything. They're building, and you know, they're building their CV, their game as these other fights are going on, and all of a sudden you get, oh, this guy's undefeated coming in. But counter to all that, Dwayne, and it sounds silly saying this, is someone else who I think is severely underrated by fans is Aljamain Sterling, and he's the champion. That's what I mean. That's why it sounds so silly saying that he's underrated, but everyone just seems to write him off, and they're just so quick to.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's like, I know I've banged this drum a million times, but I said it in our predictions for the second Yan fight. I really thought he was going to get the win, and he did. You know, he's a very well-rounded, very skilled wrestler, and just the way people talk about him, like, so many people are writing him off against Dillashaw already. I'm like, are you mental? Have you got something wrong with you to think that? You know, how can the champion be so underrated? It makes no sense. You can't beat Yan twice. I guess the first one doesn't count. But you can't beat Yan and then not be respected as a fighter. You know, I mean, yeah, fine, it was a close fight, but, you know, come on. He deserves more respect than he's getting.
Well, that's the thing of, especially with the second fight, because people just presumed that Yan was going to run through him. And then just because Aljamain didn't do it in a dominant fashion, they're still quick to just, you know, cast him away, just treat him as disposable. You know, like, why? He's just proved that he can hang with pure Yan.
The best, literally the best.
So like, he just proved that. You know, he's beat Corey Sandhagen. You think, put some respect on his name. He's the champion for a reason. I know it was a fluke, but take that aside. You know, I'm saying a fluke how he won the belt. But
Yeah.
just put a pin in that for now and actually watch his fights. I think people are going to be really surprised in this TJ Dillashaw fight, to be honest. I mean, I don't want to say something and then have to eat my words massively.
Yeah,
But
I'll clip this up if something bad happens, don't worry.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we've done that before, but we'll do it again. But I just think, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that, I'm not giving a prediction or anything like that, but I just mean his performance, regardless of the outcome, it's going to be clear why he's the champion. He didn't get there just by mistake. You don't all of a sudden, you don't get one fight in the UFC and then all of a sudden have a go at belt if you want. That's up for grabs, and then just sit on the floor, take a knee to the head, and all of a sudden you're the champion. He's got to build a repertoire before that.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, he's now this champion, and hopefully he can be a dominant champion. Hopefully he can get a good few wins and gain that respect he deserves, rather than just being, he's a rubber champion, we're just waiting for the next one, which kind of happened to someone like Charles Oliveira, because so many of us were just kind of waiting for, all right, who's going to beat Charles? And then he ran through Gagey and Poirier, and you think he's legit,
Well, that's another point as well. I've wrote Charles off since he's been the champion, and including this championship fight against Chandler, I've wrote him off in every single fight. I thought we were going to lose every single one, and I just keep getting proved wrong. So maybe Charles is another one to bring up in that conversation, and I'm guilty of it myself, because the champion has a name, Dwain,
and it's vacant. Yeah,
love that. But I do think that's all we've got time for. If you can like, comment, and subscribe, it really does help us out.